So the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency oversees more than 84,000 industrial chemicals under a law that was passed in 1976. It's known as the Toxic Substances Control Act. And this is a law that's been on the books for a long time and is largely seen as very ineffective in terms of dealing with what we're learning about toxic chemicals. Essentially what the law does is give the EPA very little power to, number one, stop a product from being put on the market in the first place. Number two, have any controls on that product once it is in the marketplace. And then once health problems are documented, it makes it almost impossible, based on court decisions from industry challenges of the law, it makes it almost impossible to take a product off the market. What's happened with these flame retardant chemicals is essentially a chemical is introduced, and the EPA has a very limited amount of time to approve whether that chemical can go on the market. The company does not have to prove that the chemical is safe. It's up to the EPA. The burden is on the EPA to prove it is unsafe. And the EPA oftentimes doesn't have any information that would allow it to make such a decision. So the chemical goes on the market. And oftentimes, because of provisions in that law, they don't have to share what's actually in the product with the public or with even other government scientists. So what ends up happening is these chemicals go on the market, nobody knows that they're even out there, and then eventually independent scientists start seeing mystery chemicals in the environment. They don't know what they are. And this is what's happened with a few of these flame retardants. All of a sudden they start seeing a chemical signature in, say, a person's blood or a woman's breast milk or in the air in Chicago, things like that. And they eventually find out through various, almost sometimes it's a matter of luck, that they find out what these chemicals actually are, and then slowly but surely they start testing whether or not they actually cause harm. And so that can take a decade or more. And by the time then that the independent scientific community or scientists outside the EPA, even within the government, catch up to one of these chemicals and document all the health risks, it's very difficult then to take that chemical off the market.
The EPA touches on the lives of every single American, every single day.
The Obama administration pledged, well, number one, they've been trying to push for an overhaul of the law. Congress has rejected that several times.
Unfortunately, the Environmental Protection Agency lacks the ability to tell us which chemicals are safe for use in these items. And that's why I'm planning to introduce an updated version of the Safe Chemicals Act.
There have been at least 5 different variations of a law sponsored by Frank Lautenberg, a Democratic senator from New Jersey, that would completely overhaul the Toxic Substances Control Act, require the burden to be placed on industry generally to prove the safety of their chemicals, give the EPA more power to regulate these chemicals. Whether it's a Democratic Congress or Republican Congress, that overhaul bill has not passed. It's not even gotten out of committee. So what happened in the early days of the Obama administration is Lisa Jackson, the administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency, said the EPA is going to start using what authority it does have in different ways. It's going to invoke things that are in the law, provisions that are in the law, but for whatever reason have never been used before, and start scrutinizing some of these chemicals more closely, including some of these flame retardant chemicals. Even those things, under the limited powers they have under the law as it stands now, the EPA has been largely powerless to do anything with that. A number of the things that Jackson proposed in 2009 to do something about more stringent oversight of some of the more well-documented toxic chemicals, a lot of that is stuck in an obscure office at the White House that essentially acts as a gatekeeper for any kind of federal rule. And those rules that Jackson has proposed can't even get out of another office within the administration that she belongs to. So it's not just that members of Congress are divided on this. It appears that the Obama administration is divided on whether or not something should happen in this direction. So we've heard a lot of talk from the EPA about things they're going to do. The most recent thing is they announced a number of chemicals that they plan to scrutinize more closely in-house. But in terms of actual tougher regulation, there's been very little of that.